All right, we're back. All right. So, as I'm recording this, I took a week off because my senior exhibition was last week and I kind of went full throttle on that and I had to do some last minute adjustments. I not only did I design the merch, but I took it to the fullest extent possible. It was my first merch drop. Not only did I do the merch, but I also designed the website. I had to go through the research to find the manufacturer and then set up the drop shipping and then connect the manufacturer to the website. And I also went all out on, I did a photo shoot campaign for it, and I used the photos to help plan out the marketing campaign that I carried out through Instagram. So that took a lot of work. So last week I took a week off and now we're back. So I'm getting back in the swing of things very quickly. I hope that the audio is recording. The Rodecaster is being a little finicky today, but I hope that's film. I think it's catching the audio, and I hope to God that I don't have to record this episode again. But I'll say that last week was the last hard week of my semester, and now this last month, I graduate next month. But these next couple weeks will be pretty easy. They will be smooth. I can enjoy being a senior, and I'll be consistent with the episodes. And yeah, that's my life update. Let's jump into this week's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of As a Creative, the podcast focusing on empowering creatives and giving them the tools and knowledge to thrive in the industry. My name is Robin, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to deal with rejection and failure when it comes to working in the creative industry. So failure is an inevitable part of the design process. It applies to any art and design practice/discipline. It also applies to personal growth or any just personal improvement. So in this episode, I will be sharing how I've learned to confront failure and the mind shifts that I've had to make when it comes to dealing with rejection and failure when it comes to being a creative. So my first advice on how to deal with failure is to give yourself the time to fail. And this goes back to a piece of advice I gave in a previous episode, which is to track how much time you take when you work on your creative projects, whatever projects you work on, whatever skill you possess. Track how long it takes you to work on your projects, track how much time it takes you to complete a certain task, and take that into consideration and add some more time to that typical amount that you would take to work on a project. Add a little bit more free time, a little leeway that will allow you to experiment, try different things out and different possibilities out, and to possibly fail. And again, you should be tracking the amount of time that you spend on your projects, your creative projects, not only to be more familiar with your work style, but also to know how to bill your work when it comes to freelancing. And in some cases, when you're considering how much time it takes you to work on a certain project, like typically, sometimes that amount of time that you give yourself, it already works in that experimentation and that ability to try different possibilities. But make sure you allot yourself that full amount of time that you believe you need to complete a certain project. And in some instances, you may need to give yourself a little bit more time, to give yourself a little bit more breathing room, so you have the ability to experiment and to try different possibilities again, and to give yourself time to fail. So if you procrastinate and you cut yourself short and you realize you messed up something or something didn't work out, you are not going to handle failure well. You are going to stress yourself out, and it's not going to be a good time for you to create or to make or just go about completing a project. And one of the most strategic ways to deal with failure is to give yourself time to fail, because everybody knows, not only when it comes to the creative process, but to anything really when it comes to this life, you're not going to get the best result every single time the first time around. Everybody knows that failure is inevitable. It's going to happen to everybody. So giving yourself the time and the space to fail, it gives you the ability, it eases you, and it also creates a more free mindset when it comes to your work. And it gives you the ability and opens up your mind to even just experimenting and trying out different things with your work. So not only does giving yourself more time help you deal with failure, but it opens you up to experimenting and to try different possibilities and to improve what you do. Another way of dealing with failure is changing the way you view it. And this is definitely something that takes time. I would definitely say it requires you to be emotionally numb. And this goes back to what I've said in a previous episode, which is to objectify the failure, objectify the instance, and just be able to acknowledge that the failure was an instance, it was an outcome that happened, and you can't change it. And regardless of how good you feel about it, how bad you feel about it, regardless of any way you feel about it, it happened, and the way you feel about it isn't going to change it. So in addition to objectifying failure and taking the emotion out of it and just summarizing it as an occurrence or an event, another way to view failure is to see it as a lesson. And you have to be realistic with yourself and with your journey and development as a creative, as an artist, as a designer, to improve your skills and to further advance yourself in your career to get where you want to go. It's going to take failure. And again, failure is inevitable, and you have to see that you get something out of it. And most of the time, in most instances, failure is honestly an accident. When someone fails, they don't mean to have a bad result. They don't intentionally mean for things to turn out bad. And just realizing that, when you realize that most of the time failure is an accident and there's no malintention behind it, you gotta give yourself grace. And once you point out to yourself that you had no bad intentions, you'll start to see failure as something that's not that negative or not as negative. And you have to be able to recognize a lesson or something you learned out of that instance or that occurrence. If you're able to pull out a lesson out of that failure, then you won't see failure as something so bad because you are able to gain something out of it. And once you realize you have no bad intentions, you'll start to see failure in a better light. You won't see it as this negative thing. You need to be able to pull a lesson out of it. You need to be able to learn something. And so being able to objectify failure, it helps you better analyze the situation, and hence you're able to pull a lesson or learn something from it. Like, for example, what did you realize you need to do differently for the next time? And when you gain that lesson, you'll start to see failure as not this bad thing because you gained a lesson out of it. It's not as negative as you think. So now I'm going to be discussing how to deal with rejection, which is a very prevalent thing to me right now as I'm trying to apply for full-time jobs as a upcoming college grad in this economy. And anyone in my shoes knows that at this point, a rejection is more normal than a yes. And rejection is just as inevitable as failure. And so my way of dealing with rejection when it comes to getting a no from a job application or getting rejected from an opportunity, is just to recognize the worth in all I do. Again, I advertise myself as a multidisciplinary creative. I am a graphic designer, a photographer, videographer. I work with audio. And so advertising myself as such and recognizing that I do a lot, that I do possess a lot of skill sets that relate to one another, it helps me recognize that I am doing a lot, that I am doing things, I'm working towards something, that I do things, and that I'm not doing nothing. So another way of dealing with rejection is to get over the fear of putting yourself out there. And once I got to the point where I was able to share my work online, put myself out there unapologetically, I was able to realize that I got something going for myself. So when I get rejected from an opportunity, or I get turned down from an employer, I am able to fall back on knowing that I am doing things, that I do a lot, and that I have something going for myself. And so being able to fall on that, and having things going for yourself, it helps provide comfort in the times that you are rejected from an opportunity or get turned down from something. And this is something that I mentioned in my episode about confidence, which is that you have to prove to yourself objectively to have confidence in yourself through all the work that you do. So putting in the work to improve your skills, or to just put yourself out there, that helps you prove to yourself why you should have confidence in yourself. And so in the times that you get rejected from an opportunity or get turned down by an employer, you're able to fall back on your confidence. And your confidence, again, comes from the assurance that you are working and you are doing things. So always have things going for yourself, always have things to do, because when you get rejected from an opportunity, it doesn't hurt as bad compared to if you get turned down for something and you don't have anything, you don't have nothing to do, you got nothing going for you. Confidence is key in other opportunities that you want to seek out, for future employers that you want to possibly work for. And that's because they want someone that's sure of themselves. So when dealing with rejection, it's definitely important to make sure you find ways to stay confident in yourself. And confidence is what's gonna help you rebound from rejection and keep you working and going in the direction that you want to go in. Another aspect of dealing with rejection and how you view it is just in general, make sure you are in tune with yourself and making sure that you are creating from a place of authenticity. As a creative that has produced work just basically for the sake of me and just to put it out there, and also creating for clients when it comes to not only just my design work, but also when I'm doing photos or video for a client. Even when it comes to commissions, I've realized you still have to find a way to stay authentic to yourself and to make sure that it's coming from a natural place. Because yes, the work is for the client, but it's also coming from you. And honestly, when working with clients, make sure you are listening to them verbatim for what they say, and listen verbatim what they want and produce that. And if they don't like that, then you can point back to what they said and make them elaborate, but literally follow word for word what they want and do that. And see following client revisions or client critiques as a step towards completing the commission or finishing the project. And when you consider critique and feedback and revisions to be a step towards finishing something than a personal attack, you are definitely going to go about doing client work and commission work a lot better. You're going to view it a lot better. And yeah, that's my little bit of advice for going about commissions. But back to dealing with rejection. And lastly, similarly to how I talked about failure, don't take rejection personally. And this is definitely a harder thing to do, even though because it definitely feels like it's a personal thing towards you. It definitely feels like a personal attack. But again, you have to find a way to objectify rejection and just see it as an event, see it as an instance, see it as an occurrence, and move on. I don't want to bring beliefs or spirituality too much into this, but a way that you can view rejection is just one door closes, another one opens. And you have to trust in yourself that as long as you keep improving your skills, keep working on things, producing work, putting yourself out there, and sharing your work with the world, you have to believe that if you keep doing those things, something will eventually turn up for you. And again, I don't put a lot of weight or emphasis on people's opinions or views of me. I don't let it hold me down for too long. I'm that type of person that keeps chasing and moving it along. And it definitely takes a time to build the type of mindset that I have. It definitely has taken a couple years. But it goes back to the advice and the tips that I've shared on this podcast when it comes to confidence and having a strong work ethic. And those two things are probably the most important things to have as a developing creative and to ensure that you advance in your career. And confidence and a strong work ethic too, it definitely helps. It definitely helps with how you deal with failure and rejection. So that is all that I have for this episode. If you like this episode, make sure you go rate me on Spotify. Make sure you go like the YouTube video and follow the social media at as.acreative. If you're interested in me and what I got going on personally for me, follow me at ROOBIOS. I would also like to announce, like I said in the beginning of this episode, I released my senior exhibition project. It is my merch line, my first merch drop, Resilient Creative. It is inspired by my personal journey as a developing creative, and it is my personal interpretations of various emotional and mental obstacles that I believe we all go through as creatives working in the industry. If you're interested, I will be listing the website to my merch line down below. Go check it out. Also, shout out to the creators that are featured in my photo shoot campaign for the merch line. They are personal friends or personal colleagues that I have worked with in the Chicago industry. They are actual creatives working in the industry, and I am thankful that they chose to represent my brand. And so shout out to them. If it wasn't for them, the photo shoot campaign wouldn't have been possible. And yeah, that'll do it for this episode. Go check out the merch, go check out the socials, and I will see you in the next episode.